Two agencies, both launched the same month, same city, same services, and even similar team sizes. One just hit 7 figures in revenue, and the other, well, they're updating their LinkedIn profiles and looking for jobs. The difference wasn't talent, timing, or even luck. It was something way more insidious. Something that creeps into every agency owner's brain the moment they land their first big client or get featured in that industry publication. I'm talking about hubris, and it's probably the biggest agency killer that nobody wants to discuss. I'm Kurt Schmidt, founder of Schmidt Consulting, and I help agencies build competitive advantages their competitors can't copy. And if there's one pattern I've seen destroy more promising agencies than bad cash flow, terrible clients, or even market downturns, it's this: the moment agency owners start believing their own hype. Today, we're going to dive into why hubris is the silent killer of agency growth, and more importantly, how to spot it before it takes you down. Let me paint you a picture of how this typically unfolds. Your agency lands that dream client. Maybe it's a brand everyone recognizes or a project that finally lets you charge what you're worth. The work goes well, the client loves the results, and they send you a glowing testimonial. And that's when it starts. Suddenly, you're not just another agency grinding it out. You're the agency that landed impressive client name, and you start dropping that client's name in every conversation. Your proposals get a little more confident. Your pricing, well, if you're good enough for impressive client, you're good enough to charge for premium rates across the board. But underneath all that confidence, something dangerous is happening. You're starting to believe that success was inevitable, that your process is foolproof, and that you've cracked some code your competitors are too dumb to figure out. I worked with an agency that landed a massive e-commerce redesign, 6-figure project. The client saw 30% boost in conversions. Great work, right? But instead of analyzing what specifically worked and building a repeatable systems, the founder started positioning his agency as conversion optimization experts. He raised the rates across the board, started turning down projects that didn't fit this new premium positioning, and began speaking at conferences about his revolutionary approach. 18 months later, he was scrambling to pay payroll. Turns out that one successful project was just lightning in a bottle. A perfect storm of good timing, client cooperation, and yes, some solid work, but it wasn't a repeatable system. When he tried to replicate those results with his newfound confidence, reality just hit really hard. Hubris doesn't just show up as an obvious cockiness, it's way sneakier than that. I've spotted 3 main ways it shows up in agencies. Number 1 is the expert trap. This is when you start believing you understand your clients' businesses better than they do. You stop asking questions because you think you already know the answers. Your discovery sessions become presentations instead of what you think they genuinely need or an exploration of their real challenges. One design agency I consulted with started skipping client research because they were experienced enough to know what worked. Their hit rate on projects dropped from 80% to about 40% before they figured out what was happening. Number 2 is the process prison. This happens when you become so confident in your way of doing things that you stop adapting. Your process becomes dogma. Clients who question your approach aren't being collaborative, they're being difficult. I watched a development agency lose 3 major clients because they just refused to adjust their project methodology. They'd had success with agile development, so that became the only way they'd work. When clients needed something different, instead of adapting, they basically told clients why their preferences were wrong. Number 3 is the referral delusion. This is the belief that your work is so obviously amazing that clients will naturally refer you without any effort on your part. You stop nurturing relationships because you assume satisfied clients will just automatically become advocates. The reality? Even clients who love your work might not refer you if you don't make it easy and remind them occasionally. But hubris tells you that asking for referrals somehow diminishes your reputation. So how do you catch hubris before it catches you? Watch for these red flags. You start catching yourself saying things like, "They just don't get it," or "Most clients aren't sophisticated enough for this approach." Little throwaway comments that seem harmless but reveal how you're starting to think about the people paying your bills. Same thing happens with competitors. You find yourself casually dismissing other agencies. "Their work is pretty basic," or "I don't know how they stay in business." You think these conversations stay internal, but that energy has a way of leaking out, and clients can pick up on it, potential partners notice it, and before you know it, you're the agency that talks trash instead of focusing on your own game. You stop celebrating small wins because they're beneath you now, and if landing a $20,000 project used to be exciting but now feels like settling, that's dangerous territory. Your proposals start getting longer and more theoretical, you're spending more time explaining why your approach is superior and less time understanding their specific needs. You avoid certain types of projects not because they're unprofitable, but because they don't match your new premium image. Look, there's nothing wrong with raising standards, but when ego drives your decisions more than business sense, you're heading for trouble. And here's the biggest one. You stop learning. When was the last time you attended a conference not as a speaker, but as someone genuinely trying to improve? When did you last ask a client, what could you do better? The good news, hubris is preventable, but it requires intentional effort. First, stay curious. When you catch yourself assuming you already know what a client needs, force yourself to ask one more question. Just one. I watched an agency almost blow a website redesign because they assumed the client wanted modern and clean, but when they asked one more follow-up question to what does modern and mean to your customers, they discovered that the client's audience was 50 plus executives who found most modern sites confusing and hard to navigate. It was a complete game changer and completely changed their approach. Second, track leading indicators, not just outcomes. Don't measure whether projects just succeed, measure whether or not your process worked. Sometimes projects succeed despite poor processes, and sometimes they fail despite good processes. One agency I know had a campaign that absolutely crushed it, 40% above their conversion goals. But when they dug into it, they realized it was because the client's competitor had a major PR disaster that same week. Okay, and third, create feedback loops that matter. Anonymous client surveys after every project, regular team retrospectives, monthly reviews of what you thought would happen versus actually what happened. And fourth, please stay hungry. Set aside budget every quarter for learning, conferences, courses, even competitors' content. The moment you think you've got it all figured out is the moment you stop growing. And finally, diversify your validation. Don't let your entire sense of success depend on landing impressive clients or getting any industry recognition. Build success metrics around team growth, profit margins, client retentions, stuff that actually sustains a business. Oh, and break down that scarcity fortress. Join an agency group. Start having coffee with other owners in your market. Share a real challenge you're facing. You'll be shocked at how often someone already has solved that exact problem you're wrestling with. I myself have a group called the Solo Club. You can check out a link in the description if you want to join it. It's for solopreneurs and independent business owners that want to get together and share ideas, and it's really accessible, so you should join us. If you're reading the warning signs and thinking, oh crap, that's me, don't panic. Hubris is reversible, but it can require some uncomfortable honesty. Start by auditing recent decisions. Which projects did you pursue for ego versus profit? Which clients did you dismiss because they weren't premium enough? Which processes did you stick with because you were invested in being right rather than being effective? Then have some hard conversations. Reach out to recent clients, especially ones where things didn't go perfectly, and ask what you could have done better. You'll be amazed at what people will tell you when you realize you're genuinely asking and not just fishing for compliments. As part of my Next 90 program in my consulting, one of the first things we do is do a round of interviews with past clients, existing clients, and it's amazing the feedback we get and how much that can change where your agency is going. And the next is rebuild your beginner's mind. Pick one area where you think you're already pretty good and actively seek out people who know more than you do. Take their advice seriously, and even when it challenges your current approach. Look, confidence is essential for agency success, believe me. Clients need to believe you can solve their problems, but there's a massive difference between confidence and hubris. Confidence says, I have the skills and experience to help you. Hubris says, I already know what you need before you even tell me. Confidence builds on proven results, and hubris builds on assumed superiority. Confidence stays curious, while hubris thinks it has all the answers. Surprise, it doesn't. My challenge for you this week, find one area where you've gotten comfortable or stopped questioning your approach. Ask yourself, am I doing this because it works, or am I doing it because I'm invested in being right? Then go ask someone, a client, a team member, or even a competitor, what they think you should improve. The answer might sting a little, but that sting is way better than the alternative. I'm Kurt Schmidt, and I believe the strongest agencies aren't those that never fail. They're the ones that stop learning from their failures. If this hits home, hit that subscribe button. I share practical strategies for agency growth every week, and trust me, I've gotten plenty more uncomfortable truths to explore. Thanks for watching, and remember, stay confident and stay curious.